This is the second part of a video about the suspension of Mark Bunker's Xenutv 1 account. In the first part, I gave background information, and in this part, I want to conduct a fair use analysis that I think will help Mark get his account back. Now, before I do this, I must state that I am not a lawyer. I will be discussing legal issues and strategies, and if you are watching, Mark, don't take this as legal advice. I'm merely making suggestions about things you should ask a real lawyer about. You would be better off entering an X-Lax eating contest than taking legal advice from me. Now, if you're watching, Mark, I want to tell you a little bit about myself, give you a little background. I, too, was suspended for allegedly violating copyright law. It's a long story, and if you're really interested, you can watch the videos I made about it on April 20th. But the Reader's Digest version is this. I didn't violate copyright law, and the video that got me suspended didn't even violate YouTube's terms of service. I had permission to post a video by Firefly515, but I was the victim of a false DMCA. I reacted to my situation by doing as much research about copyright law as I could, and I built a website to discuss what I found. I'll be posting a link to several pages of my website because they're relevant to the discussion here. The first two links on my website discuss the Viacom DMCA dragnet of 2007. Viacom sent YouTube 100,000 DMCA notices in February 2007. They demanded that YouTube remove videos that contain clips of their copyrighted material. Unfortunately, Viacom didn't take fair use into account when they sent out their notices, and they were demanding that even videos that made fair use of their clips be removed. A user named Liberal Viewer's account was suspended in this dragnet because he made fair use of a few Colbert clips, and I'll post a link to that in the sidebar. Unfortunately, nearly 60 of Viacom's DMCAs were totally bogus because they demanded that YouTube remove videos that didn't contain any Viacom footage at all. I repeat, almost 60 DMCA notices that Viacom sent out were for videos that didn't contain any Viacom footage whatsoever. This was clearly a mistake on Viacom's part. They didn't intentionally plan on censoring non-infringing material, but somehow some letters were sent out containing erroneous information. This is a fairly serious matter because each DMCA takedown notice is a legal document, and Viacom signed those documents under penalty of perjury, swearing that they had the legal rights to the videos in question. The Electronic Frontier Foundation sued Viacom on behalf of one of the users whose videos was unjustly removed in the Viacom dragnet. The EFF dropped their lawsuit when Viacom pledged to take significant steps to honor fair use of their material. Viacom wrote to the EFF, and I'm quoting now here, "Regardless of the law of fair use, we have not generally challenged users of Viacom copyrighted material where the use or copy is occasional and is a creative, newsworthy, or transformative use of a limited excerpt for non-commercial purposes." I will post a link in the sidebar to EFF's press release. From the tone of the press release and from their communication with the EFF, it looks like Viacom has pledged to bend over backwards in order to avoid unjustly censoring videos that made fair use of their clips. It looks like Viacom has agreed that it would allow use of its clips unless it is a clear-cut situation that the usage is not fair. But it also looks like Viacom's refusal to withdraw their DMCA complaint against Mark violates the spirit of their understanding with the EFF. Let's look at the wording of Viacom's statement more closely. Clearly, Mark's use of Viacom's clips were only occasional and limited. He used limited excerpts. Neither clip was over 2 minutes long, and neither clip was used for commercial purposes. The main problem with Mark's usage of the clips is that it was really not transformative. By that I mean the clips weren't altered or combined with new elements to create an original work. If only Mark had combined it with other clips or added some commentary at the beginning or the ending of the clip, or if he had added background music that would have added new meaning to Colbert's clip, he would have transformed it, and Viacom would have probably allowed its use. This is what Mark should have said at the beginning of the video, and then all would have been well with Viacom. Yo, Viacom lawyers. Yeah, I'm talking to you, assholes. This here video is being used in conjunction with my blog in order to teach people about Scientology. I want to help them avoid losing their fortunes to Scientology and avoid losing their families to Scientology's disconnect. So I'm adding a few words at the beginning of the video in order to make it transformative and fair use. So here are the words that will make it transformative. Stephen Colbert, good. Scientology, bad. Viacom lawyers, suck eggs. There, you got your transformative elements. Happy now? This is fair use. So back off, you motherfuckers! So that's what Mark should have said at the beginning of his video. And if he had said just that, well, first of all, he would have said it with a much better beard than I had. But if he had said that, then Viacom would have no reason to deny him use of the clips. It would have been fair use. But he didn't say it, unfortunately, so his usage was clearly infringing. Clearly infringing. His usage was clearly infringing because he didn't say that at the beginning of the clip. Right? Well, not so fast. This is anything but clearly infringing. It's not a clear-cut issue at all. I'll perform a fair use analysis in a minute, but first I must discuss the purpose of copyright law. Our founding fathers established copyright law for one purpose and one purpose only: to foster an environment where people can freely create new works that would advance our understanding of the world. I have discussed this in detail on my website and in my video I made last September, so I won't belabor that here. Copyright law incorporates two elements in order to reach its goal. First, it gives authors and artists an incentive to create new works by giving them limited rights to control and profit from their work. And second, it recognizes that new works must often build on older works in order to advance our knowledge. If we didn't have the ability to use excerpts from older works without getting permission from the author, for example, a critic could not write an effective but hostile book review. There's a tension between these two elements. If an author had total control over his work, then he could deny those who wanted to critique it the ability to cite relevant passages in order to tear it apart. But the critic shouldn't be able to use too much of the work, because otherwise people could just read the review instead of buying the original, and this would deprive the author of his right to profit from his work. So how do we resolve the conflict between these two conflicting elements in order to establish an environment that fosters new works? We do this through the fair use doctrine, which is embodied in Section 107 of the Copyright Law. As you might expect from the tensions between the elements of copyright law, the law requires a balancing of various factors determining whether a given use is a fair use. It specifically lists 4 factors that courts should weigh, but the list is not exhaustive, and courts may feel free to weigh other factors as well if they believe the situation warrants it. Fair use is decided on a case-by-case basis, and different courts may choose to assign different weights to each of these factors, depending on the circumstances. There can be close cases where what is determined to be fair use in one court might not be considered fair use in another. Unfortunately, fair use analysis is complex, and there is no simple formula which can be applied to say whether a given use is fair or not. That's just the nature of the beast, and it can't be changed. So what are the 4 factors considered in fair use? The first is the purpose and character of the use, including whether or not its use is of a commercial nature or for non-profit educational purposes. The second factor is the nature of the copyrighted work. Informational work, such as factual articles, are more likely to be ruled fair use than works of fiction, literature, or music. The third factor is the amount and substantiality of the portion used in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole. In general, the smaller the portion of the work copied, the more likely it is to be fair use. The fourth factor is the effect of the use upon the potential market for the copyrighted work or the value of the copyrighted work. If your work is likely to be used as a substitute for the work that you copied from, if it is likely to cut into sales because people who see your work are using it as a substitute for buying the original work, then your use probably isn't fair. So those are the four main factors involved in a fair use analysis. As I said before, courts can assign different weights to each of these factors as they see fit under the circumstances. They can also go beyond these factors and take other factors into consideration. For example, if the copying exposed a scam or a threat to society, a court could take this into account in deciding whether or not the copying was necessary for the good of the community. It's not obligated to take this into consideration, but it certainly has the discretion to do so. Now let's take a look at how these factors relate to the videos that Mark posted. I've only seen one of the videos. The one entitled Scientology, Is Will Smith a Scientologist? The video is 1 minute and 50 seconds long, and Colbert uses rumors that Will Smith has become a Scientologist as an excuse to poke fun at Scientology's ridiculous beliefs and litigious nature. The other video is entitled Scientology, Wag of the Finger. I've seen someone claim that this video is about a minute long, and I don't have any reason to doubt this claim. I will assume that is correct, and if I'm wrong, if any of you know I'm wrong, please let me know and please correct me. So let's look at the four factors. Okay, let's start with the first factor, the purpose and character of the use. Now this factor is divided into three sub-factors, which we must look at to evaluate the purpose and the character of the use. First, the videos were used for non-commercial purposes, and non-commercial usage is likely to be used as fair use, as opposed to for commercial purposes. So the first sub-factor points to fair use. The second sub-factor involves whether the copying was done for the purpose of criticism and comment, parody, satire, scholarship, research, news reporting, or teaching. If it was done for any of these reasons, then it's likely to be viewed as fair use. Based on the clip that I did see, and judging from the other works by Colbert, there was at least some news reporting involved in the clip, and some parody and satire. And the clip was undoubtedly posted by Mark to draw people to his channel so that they could be educated about Scientology. So this sub-factor might point toward fair use, or at worst, it won't weigh heavily at all in our analysis. The third sub-factor is whether or not the video clip used was transformative, whether Mark added extra elements to the video in order to transform it into a new work. And at first blush, this sub-factor points toward the direction of infringement, since Mark didn't make it transformative. He didn't add any new clips at the beginning or the end, and he didn't add background music that would have changed the meaning of the clip. So he didn't transform it in any substantive way. But wait, he embedded his two video clips in blog posts. And I'll post links to his blog posts in the sidebar so you can see them. Now if you judge whether Mark's use of the videos were transformative just on the videos themselves, they obviously weren't. If, on the other hand, the videos are viewed as just components of his blog, then his use was very transformative. I have no idea how a court would look at this situation, so to be conservative, let's assume that a judge would just look at whether he had transformed the video itself. So this sub-factor probably points against fair use, with an outside chance that it could point in favor of fair use. So the three sub-factors, one points toward fair use, one points probably towards infringement, and one is probably neutral or points slightly toward fair use. Overall, this first factor doesn't point strongly one way or the other. Okay, factor 2 involves the nature of the work that was copied. If it was mainly informational, its use is more likely to be judged fair than if it was a work of fiction, literature, or music. The problem is that the copyrighted work that I saw was satire based on the news, so it's hard to say how a court would weigh this factor. Let's call this one a draw also. The third factor is the amount and substantiality of the portion used in relationship to the copyrighted work as a whole. Well, one way to look at this is that Mark used entire clips about Scientology. If that's how the court looks at it, then Mark's use wasn't fair. But I think that's the wrong way to look at it. The whole work should be viewed as the entire show, and since neither clip is more than 2 minutes long, this factor points toward fair use. The last factor is a bit tricky. If Mark's use of the Colbert clip adversely affects the market for the original material, then that use would be unfair. If people see the clips and decide that because they have already seen them, they don't have to buy a Colbert DVD or watch the clips on a site that has a deal to kick back some paid advertising dollars to Viacom, then this use of the clips would be unfair. Now you may argue, how could Mark's posting of just 2 short clips have an adverse economic impact on Viacom? Just 2 short clips couldn't possibly hurt Viacom, and so it has to be fair use, right? Well, that would be a good argument if Mark was the only person who posted clips from Colbert's show, but that is not how Viacom will look at it, and it's probably not how a court will look at it. Viacom will argue that if everyone behaved as Mark behaved, then there could be thousands of Colbert clips plastered over the internet, and that would cause them to lose a great deal of money. Even if Mark's posting of 2 clips isn't that significant, the behavior is. Viacom will say that they can't let him get away with it because it would be setting a bad precedent. It would be giving the green light to everyone else to post a few Colbert clips, and before you know it, all of Colbert's works and the works of the rest of the artists licensed by Viacom will be plastered all over the internet, and Viacom will suffer greatly. This will be Viacom's argument, and from what I have read, this is the type of argument that most courts will listen to. I have talked about fair use being a 4-factor analysis, but generally, when all other things are equal, courts tend to weigh this 4th factor more heavily than the other 3. And the Viacom argument that I have presented is exactly the type of argument that courts would buy in assessing this 4th factor, so things don't look good for Mark at this point. At least things don't look good if this is the correct way to frame the issue, but I would argue that it isn't. Sure, there would be thousands of Colbert clips posted if everyone acted like Mark, and if Mark had posted a couple of random Colbert clips with no specific purpose in mind. But he didn't do that. He posted these 2 clips specifically so that he could comment upon them in his blog. He posted these 2 clips specifically so that they would fit in with the theme of his YouTube channel. I haven't been in contact with Mark, but I strongly suspect that he posted these 2 clips specifically so that they would draw people to his channel, where they could learn more about how the Church of Scientology separates people from their money and their families. I think he posted these videos to his channel because he justifiably believes he is performing a public service. And I think he is posting these videos to his channel because people who are inspired to laugh at Scientology by Colbert's mockery are less likely to become victims of Scientology's odious practices. So fine, let Viacom frame the debate by asking the question, what would happen if everyone behaved like Bunker did? Because the proper response would be, if everyone behaved like Bunker did, they would be only posting short Colbert clips when 1, they needed them posted in order to comment on them on their blog, and 2, when the clips fell within the theme of their channel, and 3, when the clips were being posted to serve some higher societal interest. In other words, if everyone behaved like Mark Bunker behaved, there would be damn few Colbert clips posted on the web, and Viacom would be hard-pressed to show that it was suffering an economic loss. So to sum up, Factor 1, the purpose and the character of use, does not point strongly one way or another as to whether the use was fair. The second factor, the nature of the work that was copied, is also a draw. The third factor, the amount and substantiality of the portion used in relationship to the copyrighted work as a whole, probably points toward fair use. And the fourth factor, whether Mark's use adversely affects Viacom's economic interests, points toward infringement if the court sees the issue as framed by Viacom, but it would point toward fair use if it sees the issue the way I think it should see it. In short, despite the fact that Viacom's mouthpiece said that Mark's work was clearing infringing, it was not clearing infringing or even clearly infringing. The situation is anything but clear. I think there is a reasonable chance that a court would say it was fair use. The third and last part of this video will be directed directly to Mark. I'll explain how he can use the information that I've so far presented in order to help him get his account back.